And we're back in in Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020, and we're just gonna, I just want to do a scenic flight. Now this is a preset one. Let's just get her going. It's in Barcelona, and a DA40NG. I just want to check out my flight stick configurations. I was having some spikes, which I'm not sure. I was in a DC-3 aircraft, and I was using AI, so I'm not sure if it was arming a auto throttle. And you can see I started out 1,000 feet. Not too sure what's going on. It does not. Oh, it didn't. Yeah, it wasn't drawing in. It's got music on it, which is weird. I don't know why. There's a castle. Wow. Let's see if we can. I don't know why the music's on. Music. Headphone. Okay, apply and save. Go back. Okay. Wow, I don't know what was going on there. Why it keeps on doing this music? Like I don't want music. Yeah, it's like why? I should just turn the music off. Okay. Apply. Back. Resume. I don't know why it defaults. Okay, there we go. That looks pretty good. Yeah, and let's fly around. We'll go check out some of these castles and basilicas, which, incidentally, there's no humans that built these. They couldn't have. These were a lot of these structures, especially you see the fingerprints of Rome. And what they are is they're actually coming from Earth or nature or God. Very similar in how life and trees and everything is created. It all has symmetry. And in these castles, they were, I think the planet through 5D, which is where the source is, where there's no space or time, it detects the need for where humans are, and it actually just aligns the particles required to build these structures. And they're literally designed no different than a snowflake is built. Yeah, and you will see, and they have purposes, not like free energy through the spires, copper, rail systems, tunneling. This is all not built by humans. I don't know why it's actually built These were built, these castles. And then what happened is, people, a lot of the Jews and the Rothschilds and a lot of the families, they wanted to own this. So they manipulated and they disabled the free energy system, and they implemented their oil and gas and paid for utilities, and then they took ownerships and claimed they tried to burn a lot of them down, and the reason they would do that is then they can claim ownership, and they put all these fakes that they built them. They never built them. There's no history of design plans or technology that could. But there wasn't giants or aliens. This is just formulated, no different than a tree would be designed, or a human, or life created and grows. That's coming from nature or God in 5D, and whereas these structures are invoked by communication and amplification of the heart chakra through quantum thought. Quantum thought, because it's instantaneous, across vast distances, faster than the speed of light, the power of quantum thought amplified and invoking the source or God to build these structures to preserve life. That's what's happening. And I've been doing experiments with communication, and I've actually gotten synchronicity responses. So so I actually know how to do this, and they show up as Mandela effects, and people say, well, how can you prove? Because they get injected into my timeline, because they're coming from the 5D where there is no space or time. So the only way they can come into the 3D, they have to be put through it, and then when they get injected in the timeline, and then people find them, that's why I always say founded or foundation, because they're finding these structures, and then they're claiming them for themselves, so they can control humans. That's what the globalists do. Whereas these structures and everything were meant to be free for everyone. I'm not sure why I don't hear any throttle. I don't know if it's really that quiet. Inside I can hear it. So anyways, I'm just flying around. I'm going to see if it'll actually do a AI. Yeah, I guess AI can fly it here. Not sure if it's supposed to land. But you can see the pilot. And like I said, this is Microsoft Flight Simulator. But back to the castles and the silicon. They were there. And they got ejected through my timeline. And I'm not sure why, like when they say Tartaria, that's just because that's where life on the planet was, and those were the first structures that were found, I believe, in Tartaria. I think it's not built by the Tartarians. That was just the first place that they were found. So the records show that. And then when they went everywhere else, they were there, but they didn't want, so they destroyed a lot of them, because they didn't want people to catch on that, hey, these couldn't have been built by humans. And then they claimed that they had this super architect and technology when they didn't. They were there, put there from the source to preserve life as it expanded around the globe. And it just so happens Tartaria was the first area that were found. But they were probably injected all over the world. Now, and the reason I can prove that is because if they were real, if they were there all along, and not injected into the timeline from now, they would have been listed as like at least the 7 wonders of the world, or more, because these are greater wonders. You look at some of these magnificent castles, structures, they're never labeled as a wonder of the world. And that's, modern encyclopedias and documentation, they would have been named because they weren't there. They were just injected recently. And I do believe that the globalists manipulating using ARP technologies to electromagnetic bouncing off of the atmosphere, it's actually disturbing suggesting the weather patterns, but it's disturbing the weather patterns throughout the timeline, because that's actually invoking it. I believe the electromagnetic is crossing over into timelines, which when it does that, it goes throughout the timeline. So the weathers that it's creating right now to kill humans, it's actually affecting our historical timelines, and it might be wiping out humans and destroying our planet. So then the source has no choice but to stop that, and to stop it, it has to inject these life-preserving methods. Otherwise, life by HARP would kill life and then kill the planet. So it's kind of like a paradox. So the intervention is a necessity, and that's what's happening. Now, I do believe these globalist powers that are doing this, like the deep state and all that, they actually are sacred, and they are literally using evil to destroy our planet. And they don't, and it's the people like myself that have the ability. Now, I do have M and C palms. I do have the ability to connect to the source. I have Andromedan eyes, and I've figured out the process to do that. And then what happens is these structures get presented to me through, because everything is, it's almost like a matrix of digital. There is no big bang. It's actually a lot of little bangs. Like when they say you bang, someone has sex, that's a release of energy that actually creates life from the amplified pleasure or emotion, which is energy emotion, to produce life. And it's no different than when I manifest or create one of these castles or these structures. I don't know which one it's going to do. I just use my quantum thought via connecting to the 5D, and that through the emotion, that's the result. And like I said, when it's really tough to kind of get a hold of and grasp, but anything that I do create that goes and inject to the timeline is being done to preserve life that's being destroyed by HARP, which is same with nuclear power, nuclear explosions. They cross timelines, so they can actually, nuclear explosions or weather modification using HARP now in 2025 or 2026 can actually be killing life in the past, because it's actually coming, it's manipulating using electromagnetic forces, which a lot of people don't realize the time of the past and future and now it occurs all at the same time. So I figured out how anti-gravity works with UFOs. That's why you see they're flying saucers and domes, because they got to trap the electromagnetic energy that into top and bottom dome structure, which causes everything in that little bubble to go to the 5D where there's no space and time. So if it gets up to a certain frequency, it'll just disappear. And then it'll reappear when it gets back down to a lower frequency. And then when it's at a higher frequency, when it's connecting to the 5D, it's dual, almost like dual singularity. And they're going in negative and positive rotation, and you adjust it so that it's more negative in frequency or positive in frequency. And I'm not sure if it's negative will take you into the future and positive will take you into the past, but either or, it's just slight adjustment. And because you're connected the path to the rotation frequencies, like a Stargate, it connects to the 5D, and then you just manipulate it. So when you see UFOs or alien ships zoom across the sky, what they're doing is they're actually engaging this frequency deviation slightly, so that they're actually time traveling in short spurts. And if they hold it down, for, even greater periods, it'll actually go back into time or into the future. But there's laws of 5D where you can't, let's turn off the autopilot. Yeah, let's go back and land it. There's laws of what the 5D can do. Now the forces that are doing a lot of this evil, they're limited to 3D, so they can't really touch anyone at 5D. I'm not too concerned about that, coming after me. Yeah, I'm going to go back and land. But that is essentially how things work. And they show up, people say, well, how do you know that? And like I said, they just show up as Mandela effects, essentially. Because when they affect the timeline through the HARP weather modifications or nuclear bombs, that's how you end up with, the Mandela effects, like the Fruit of the Loom losing the cornucopia, because the exposure of that person that designed that product, the idea of a cornucopia may have been not presented to his thoughts, because it was, who knows, the person may have been killed by the weather modification that's happening now and killing someone in the past through a storm or hurricane or volcanic activity or earthquakes or whatever. So they're actually manipulating all these timelines and causing shifts, and then and then the 5D will create these castles and structures, and then these evil people, these evil Rothschilds and Jews or satanic, they claim ownership of these. I don't know if I got it. Something going on with my ears here. But anyways, it's really tough to, because you're dealing with 4D and 5D where there's no space of time. The 3D physics don't apply. That's how when aliens, or I think aliens are more when they're in their craft, when they go into the anti-gravity, which is tapping into the 4D or 5D, and when they want to go across the universe or the galaxy or go wherever across the Earth, they can do that by seeing that's why you always hear stories about that you got to put, the aliens have to put their hands on a panel. That is so that the quantum thought of where they're going to go is translated into the craft, and it actually switches the craft from one point in the galaxy to another instantaneously because quantum thought is instantaneous. And a lot of people don't realize that you have these quantum thought abilities, which can be explained if you look at identical twins. They will feel things instantly even if they're across the planet, because there is no, at that quantum level they're connected, so there's no space-time. So we're just going back to the airport over there. Now let's go over here. And we're just going to come back in and land. Like I said, I'm just doing this as a little test. Yeah, I'm running into some sound audio issues. Like I said, I'm not too sure what's causing that. But it is to do, I think I got to reboot the simulator because I had the audio of the music on and I didn't mute it. But when you turn it off, I think I have to restart the simulator. So anyway, that's the explanation of how these structures get built. Now I don't claim to have built them all. There's a lot of people that can invoke the earth to build them, because they're actually built from the earth, right? It's not me building them. It's no different than a snowflake is created, or a tree, and or an animal, or human. It's coming from the source, or God, in 5D, and it's almost, I put it this way, it's almost like when a castle or something is created, or even a train, or railroad tracks, or rocks, or structures, and they can't be explained because no human could have possibly built that. So that's how you know, kind of like the fingerprint of God, or source, or whatever you want to call it. But it's actually nature, really what it is, which is always aware. It's like if a tree gets chopped down, then the other trees will naturally grow their roots over to help the other one. That's all similar life preservation. Well, it's got to have a reason to preserve life, and it does because the evil satanic beings in the now that are using these electromagnetic technologies, they know that they're destroying the past, and invoking, the earth is going to invoke and build these structures to preserve life, and then they jump in and they scoop them up, and that's why the Rothschilds and all them, they own all these castles, but they never built them, they stole them. And then they want to hide this because they want to, that's why they did away with the free electric trains and trams and cars and everything else that was built, the infrastructure. It was all free coming out of the atmosphere because they want to profit. They don't understand it, so they want to profit, and the only way to profit is these carbon, oil, and then pharmaceuticals, same thing. They're just trying to depopulate the planet, and they get off on chaos and death, and that's why they're satanic. So we're coming into land. I'm going to put full flap. And after it's kind of just what I'll sum it up to is when I do manifest and create these structures through my 5D communication techniques, just imagine a 3D printer. Again, a lot of people say they look like they're laser made these into castles or into mountain tops and inside mountains, and they're just reformulated particles from the area. So that's why they go down so deep, because it comes right out of the ground all the way through the earth, all the way up and into perfect alignment for healing, for energy, transportation, housing, and that's what the purpose was. So, and then you got the glass, big glass fort structures. I think that was more for agricultural and also for warming and certain greenhouse effects. And like I said, look at all the tunneling systems, the railway systems. That was a network of energy transfer. And the reason they use stone, they're not actually cutting the stone, they're realigning the particles, but it's the mass of the stone with the spheres and the copper spheres that induct the potential electromagnetic energy out of the atmosphere and bring it down. And then it's the quantum sensing of the life forms by the source that operates them. So I believe a lot of these trains, when you get on one, it's actually reading your mind of where you want to go, and it'll stop and start according to it's like a living, breathing part of the planet coming from the source, if that makes any sense. And a lot of people say, "Oh, that's hocus pocus," it's like a wizard, you can't do that. Well, you can do that, because you try to explain how a life form is created. It's just a positive emotion of energy transfer. That's why when you have sex and produce a child, you have to have orgasms, which is a positive transformation. It's always positive. Anything negative, you're not going to have that orgasm. So that's the little bangs that create from the 5D into now. But biological life just goes into the timeline currently, whereas other structures, because they're not biological, they go out through the timeline because they're structural. And if you ever notice, there's thousands being discovered now. Never heard about them before growing up. Thousands of these basilicas, grand ones, castles, unexplainable, because they weren't there. And when they get put there, they actually the effect on the by injecting it into the timeline, actually creates a story, narrative, or a storyline, but it's also manipulated by people on Earth to try to steal those structures and claim them for themselves and hide it, and destroy it, so they can profit through greed, gluttony, and usury. And that's mainly the Jews that have done this. Very evil people. Now, not all of them, but there's a whole sector of evil. And like I said, if you look at Canada, what Carney's doing, he's an evil globalist, satanic, and he knows, because if he's an economist, look at basic supply and demand principles. Very simple, applies to everything. You got supply, demand, and price points. So when the supply goes down, then the demand goes up and the price goes up. And so when they bring in millions and millions of these immigrants from India, that they financially they loot Canada, and all these people come in, they overwhelm the resources and deplete the supply of housing and Medicare, so they actually know that the result is going to be death of Canadians and homelessness, and it's just basic economics. They cannot say that they did not know that this would happen, because it's the basics of economics, supply and demand. So this is intentional. This is manslaughter. This is murder, and that's what they're doing. That's what satanic people do, and they will have karmic justice hunt them down and deal with it. That's happening now, and have mercy on their souls, but they will be terminated. I'm suspecting by karmic justice, and that's kind of the great awakening. Now, Klaus Schwab, he's a Nazi. His dad was a Nazi. Chrystia Freeland, her grandfather, Nazi. She's a Nazi. All these globalists involved, they're all Nazi, satanic persons trying to own the earth, kill people, depopulate people and the Jews are involved with that. Everywhere you look, there's Jews involved with all the pharmaceuticals, the mRNA vaccines that aren't vaccines, or bioweapons to depopulate the planet. Everywhere in that process, Jews everywhere, all through the CDC, all infected, all taken over. World Health Organization, just terrorists, evil, satanic people. And I can show it. I mean, it's just common sense. You don't, when you have, when they're trying to hide the data, thousands or hundreds of people dying in their studies, they're hiding the death. And there's no, I mean, if they were legitimate vaccines, they would have been taken off the shelves. They never would have been put on the shelves. And it was a whole satanic manipulation and takeover of Canada, United States, everywhere, all over the world. And they're evil people that are doing this. They're looting money, billions and billions of dollars from Canada, United States, through the guise of foreign aid, and then they're using that to attack from within. And so it's an act of war. We should be prepared to go to battle, and karmic justice will win. That is it. This video is done.